Hey friends, welcome to another broadcast episode live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and my Facebook group. So hopefully everybody's doing fantastic. Today's episode discussion is with Natasha Jones, who's coming to us from England. How are you doing, my friend, today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Very good.
Yeah, fantastic. Great to have you today here. So today's discussion is going to be a lot about habits. One of my ultimate favorite topics. I'm really interested and excited to have Natasha here today with us. And she actually wrote a book a little while ago called Mandemic. Interesting little read. Maybe you can show the book really quickly to us, Natasha. Flash it like there we go. A little nice and neat book goes nicely into your hand. I'm yet to get that into my hands. I'm excited to get it hopefully soon. But we'll dive a little bit deeper into that book just a little bit later on. But just for the viewers, people watching either hopefully us today live or either in replay, Natasha, give us a kind of quick introduction, how you got from where you started from to where you are right now, and especially in relation to these habits and how they have sort of helped you along the way.
Okay. I'm an employment lawyer. So for 20 years plus, I've worked with businesses in regard to the employer-employee relationship. And when in the UK we were locked down, we all had a pause here, and employment law was very busy because we were furloughing people. So in the day I was very busy speaking to clients, but around the working day, I spent a lot of time in my garden. I went for lots of walks by myself and had clarity of mind, really. And I began to observe that over the 20 years in exiting employees from their job, then I had seen a pattern, especially with middle-aged men. Now, whilst I was gardening one evening, I heard a podcast which said in the UK, our highest suicide rate is males aged 45 to 49. Now, I had a moment because the penny dropped that actually that demographic of males aged 45 to 49, probably that was the majority of cases of files that had been on my desk over a 20-year period. And I began to contemplate the average 45 to 49-year-old man who was losing his job. We call it redundancy in the UK. And the impact on him. And I'd seen many men lose their identity through losing their job. But I'd noticed patterns with these middle-aged men, and they tended maybe not to move their bodies. They didn't have a good relationship with food. They drank quite a lot of alcohol, and they weren't sleeping, basically. So they're pretty much dragging themselves out of bed after very little sleep, not functioning well in the workplace and with their colleagues and in life generally. And I'd had unofficial chats. So when the case was over, I'd had flowers and cards from clients saying, Natasha, it was those little chats that we had when the legal job was done. They really, really helped. I can't thank you enough. And those little chats were, are you drinking enough water? You're in a really difficult place. Try and drink 2 litres of water a day. Can you go out for a walk? 20 minutes walking outside will lift your endorphins for 8 to 9 hours. And so they were little tips, really, because I saw these people struggling. And as a trusted advisor, they were asking for help. So I began to sort of jot down these tips that I realized were actually habits, a good habit, how you go to bed, what your evenings look like, then play out in what sort of night's sleep you have and how you wake up in the morning. So the habits then, they formed, they became a list, and there were 32 of them. And then I spoke to somebody I'd known in business for a very long time. And his story is he'd had some really challenging health concerns. And he said, well, you should write a book. And I said, well, and you could illustrate it. And he went on to illustrate it. And so the book is a story about a man who didn't like to be told what to do. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's so middle-aged men don't like to be told what to do. They don't like people pointing the finger and telling them how they should do things differently. They know they need to do things differently. They just don't know where to start. So we have 32 habits. They're illustrated. It's told as a short story like you would a children's story. So I wanted to, without pointing the finger and preaching, I wanted to alert people who are maybe stuck in life that actually, if they start to repeat a behavior and it becomes a habit, then the body becomes set up to automatically carry out these actions without needing the mind. So if you're having a really, really bad day, if, for example, I have here a Mandemic water bottle, if you've got into the habit of filling a water bottle up every single morning, it's one of the first things you do, and everywhere you go, you take your water bottle, you'll sip more water. If you're drinking 2 litres of water a day, then you'll have less headaches, your body will move, will feel better, you'll have more clarity of mind, etc. So that's how the habits began to form effectively.
Love it. There's a lot to unpack from there. I'm not sure exactly where to start with, but first of all, congrats for the book, and I love the sort of realization how you came about it. And I'm just thinking aloud loud here right now, because I think many of us, especially, we're sort of stuck in our old habits, if you will, and they're hard to break, and we want to sort of form new habits. And the worst thing is when somebody kind of on you in the same level where you are kind of comes like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And I think especially in your role, maybe you had a really sort of a sort of outside and advantage, especially for these sort of middle-aged men in their sort of mid-40s. You as a female coming from a different perspective, saying like, hey, have you done this, have you tried this? Maybe that there was like an interception point that you were able to offer them. Because I'm thinking, if someone for that person that you're describing, if somebody in kind of another friend or another sort of a boss or sort of somebody in the same level, if you will, would try to offer that kind of advice, that would probably not be taken the same way as you did. Did you see that you had a different advantage point, if you will, to sort of intercept those people in a different way?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I described my role as a distress purchase. If an employee came to me, they were already in the process of being made redundant, they were losing their job. So they had no choice but to ask for help. And I was careful when these men, effectively it was a grieving process, because for somebody who has worked for the same employer for 20 years, gone to the same place of work, to suddenly have that removed from them, is that sudden loss invokes a grieving process. So there was the initial denial, then there was the anger, basically, how can they do this to me? And it took a long time to accept it. But in between, then ultimately these small changes in behavior, these repetition of behavior, did make a huge difference. But I think you're right. They came asking for help, and which is why the tone I've written the book is more like a children's story, because I don't want to come across preaching. I don't want to come across telling anybody what to do. It's a gentle invitation to consider, perhaps if you do drink 2 litres of water a day, for example, you may feel slightly different. Give it a go. What's there to lose?
Yeah, I love that. And it's funnily enough, I think it was just yesterday, a few days ago, I had a discussion with someone, because in my field, in coaching and training, like sometimes I find myself more to be a quote unquote trainer, more of like pushing my ideas down. And I feel that it's also a little bit of a personality type, that some people need a bit more of that push, a bit more of quote unquote telling them what to do. And there's definitely other personality type then is like, oh, you need to have a bit more white gloves and have more of approach that you've just discussed there. So I think at least in my field, that what I've realized, you need to know kind of which lever to pull, if you will, and especially the sort of the people that you describe a lot of the times, as you mentioned in the book, like not many people like to be told what to do. Love it. And then what you mentioned there also, what I have to highlight is that when people come to you and ask for help, then that's when they're ready. That's when there's like, okay, I'm ready to start doing the work. And unfortunately, I don't know, I would like to get your idea and your sort of insights on this one. My sort of realization, unfortunately, is in a way that, especially us as adults, we only go and ask for help when is the kind of the last moment when we are down on the depths of the valley, if you will, and when the negativity and adversity comes upon us. That's how we learn, and that's how we change as us as adults. But obviously we know how the children learn. They learn through curiosity, through play, through discovery, if you will. And what have you realized, maybe the people that you've been in touch with, or either for yourself, how do you deal with that process of change? Is it easier to learn and change through adversity, or the way that you describe through these kind of small tiny habits and tiny actions that are maybe more positive, if you will? What's your thoughts on that?
I think if I feel COVID put me on a course, not just literally a different course in life, but a course of study. And so I feel that I haven't stopped reading and listening to podcasts since effectively COVID was upon us. Mm-hmm. And so everything I read, most people don't change unless there is a very low point in their life and there is adversity. I think I'm still holding out hope that COVID, some may see, is here to teach us something. And actually, some people may think, actually, the way I was living, I can do this better. So what I'm hoping, at the moment, there is some traction on it, some gentle nudges to take small steps every day, not try and go from 1 to 100, but take small steps, such as take that middle-aged man who effectively either drinks alcohol or caffeine, then starting to fill a water bottle and starting to drink what is a really big thing. And it may be 30 days, 60 days, it may be 90 days before actually he's automatically drinking 2 litres of water a day without even thinking about it. So for the body to adjust to it. So it will be a slow process. And if I can say, every single one of the habits in the book, I've tried and tested personally. Mm-hmm. I observed others and then thought, I need to walk the walk. I can't just talk it. So I myself, for example, meditation, I think today's 712th. And I'm still intrigued as to how every day I get up at the same time, I get up early and I get out of bed and do my morning meditation, yet my mind's still resisting it. And that's over 700, that's 700 days plus. So the human body, how it will resist trying something new because the mind is so strong. The reality is adults, it's comfortable, even if it's painful, to stay where we are. Mm-hmm. To try something new, our body doesn't want to do it, and neither does our mind. So it doesn't matter what the habit is. If you're trying something new as an adult, you're going to have a lot of resistance, and coming through that resistance, some people will come through quicker than others. Perhaps you find the same.
Mm. So that's great. So what have you, quote unquote, learned? Obviously you wrote the book during the pandemic, I guess, and during this lockdown. So that's a great one. That's a big shift and change, I suppose. But what else, like in regards to these habits, we'll dive in a little bit to the book, but what have you learned, or what are your sort of favorite habits that you've installed in the sort of last 12 months or so?
I think if I first of all look at the broader picture, so Joe Dispenza, I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza, and he basically says your personality is your personal reality. And before COVID, my life was very fast-paced, had quite a lot of anxiety, I didn't really sleep, and everything just felt, it was hard, basically. Mm-hmm. And so being forced to slow down with COVID, and COVID allowing a daily habit of walking outside in nature, of doing things slower, of being aware how the impact of tech. I think my biggest habit is around tech awareness. Mm. I became aware during COVID how addictive tech is, how it's set up to make us addictive, and how, even the messages and notifications on my phone, they were dictating to me. And so when I began to turn off notifications, when I began to set my phone on airplane mode at night, so that I wasn't looking at my phone at night, it was a hard habit to break. It wasn't easy to do. And then when I realized how almost addicted I was to my phone and looking at social media, And days on LinkedIn, if I have a post that's got lots of traction, and I'm finding I'm responding to lots of messages, I really feel the difference in my body, the drain of the social media. We all need it. I would never have met you on the other side of the world if it wasn't for social media. But I'm aware now to control it, to not let it take over my life, to not spend all day and evening on my phone, on my tablet effectively. So for me, that's been a real change. COVID has taught me, actually, sometimes an hour outside with no technology whatsoever, leave your phone indoors, don't take it with you. It was almost attached to me. My phone was always in my pocket, attached to me. I was always checking it, and my body was momentarily doing it, and I wasn't thinking about it. It was such a habit of continually looking at my phone and checking things.
That's fascinating. It's funny you mentioned that, because it's just literally within last 24 hours, I was thinking about, again, talking about LinkedIn, and we met there obviously, and I'm very grateful for it. But I realized even within the last month, I've never, for example, we never have any tech in our bedrooms, obviously, and I'm pretty good with phone, but I just recently realized that how connected we are to it, that you just mentioned. Quick personal question. What is the longest that you've been away from your phone? I'm actually want to run a poll on LinkedIn about it. Like, what is the furthest distance from your phone? Is it like, because a lot of the people, I think me and you included, probably yourself as well, most are like 24/7. We are within the hand's reach of our phone. Like, what is the distance between you and the phone most of the time during the day?
So during the day, it's within hand's reach usually. And then some habits that I've set up, it's sort of from a personal point of view, is I put the phone on a different floor to me from about 7 p.m. If you come across Jay Shetty.
Absolutely.
So Jay Shetty, there's a great, he did a great, I think it's a YouTube, very short, and he explained that, obviously from being a monk and then having no technology and then so quickly getting addicted to tech, how actually to break the habit of checking his phone at night, he had to lock it in his car. So I'm quite proud of myself that I actually leave it on a different floor, but I put it in a different room and a different floor basically, and I certainly turn it down. So there was a point I used to lock my phone and my children's phone in my office, and physically, I read somebody on LinkedIn had said closing their computer down at night or at the end of the working day gave them a sense of the day being over. There was something about, and there must have been the height of lockdown, locking the phone away in my office gave me some peace. So, I still mess around with it a little bit.
I've got some tips and ideas for that as well. But I had a personal sort of epiphany, if you will, or realization some months ago when, we have a 1.5-year-old in the house, and he sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night. And I remember waking up sort of 2-3 in the morning and having to maybe, I don't know, fill a little water bottle for him or something to do for him in the middle of the night. And I was kind of half awake, and I was just like, let me just check my phone. And all of a sudden I realized it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm checking my LinkedIn notifications and who sort of, if I got some comments, and I was like, oh, it's for the business. It's because maybe there's some business there. No, come on, Toma. It can wait till the morning. So I realized that was like a snap. It's like, holy smokes, I'm pretty connected to this thing. That's pretty crazy. And that was like, okay, let's do something about it. So that word that you mentioned there, tech awareness, it is a key word. I'll take that as a takeaway from this already. Like, tech awareness is huge. Awareness is, for me, it's something that you're able to sort of put yourself outside of your own skin, if you will, and look at yourself from a higher perspective. And once you're able to do that with anything in life, really, that is a true skill to have, and that takes a bit of practice. And sometimes it's just a small moment in time, and then all of a sudden you're back into it. But once you have that higher awareness, if you will, it is truly a remarkable skill to have. So congrats for that. And I love that. I love that.
If I can just say, I would say nearly 80-90% of those that I work with on self-care programs who say, I can't sleep. And they say, I can't switch off. and they have no awareness that taking their phone to bed with them and checking social media in bed is adding to their sleeplessness. And so worse still, they say, I can't sleep. Well, okay. And I said, well, what do you do when you can't sleep? I check Facebook. So the blue light. But these are people to even get them to charge their phone outside of the bedroom. I mean, you know, the Silicon Valley guys all say, do not ever charge your phone near your head. But these people have got their phones on their bedside table. And they're convincing themselves the reason they're doing that is because they use their phone for an alarm. So, but you know, because what's comfortable, what we do all the time, rather than trying something new, we stick with what we know, don't we? That's the human body. So it's a big deal for these people to charge their phone outside of their bedroom, to get a different alarm clock, because breaking that habit of it's almost like the toddler has a comforter blanket or the thumb to suck their thumb. We've got in the UK, we've got a big issue with sort of people not being able to sleep, insomniacs, yet their crutch, their comforter is their phone, which is counteracting. So they have no awareness. It's adding to it. So it's a hard one to break through, that one.
Yeah, it is. And well, there's a lot of thank you for pointing that out. I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, but let's move on. But I just wanted to sort of add on to that. Now when I've been sort of more active on socially and putting my own content out and writing a lot more and having sort of my own thoughts, if you will, which, to be very honest, is kind of hard in this day and age, especially if you're exposed to sort of external input all the time. It's very difficult to then have any original or creative thoughts if the input is so high. So I always say that, like, lessen the input to be able to maximize your output. I think that's one of the key factors. And what I've realized, I think it was last week, I realized, like, it was midday, like 12:30, middle of the day, and I haven't touched my phone the whole morning. Brilliant. It was actually off, completely off. And obviously, not many people are able to do that because there are, applications that you have to make calls and receive calls and meetings and so on and so forth. But that morning, my creative output was through the roof. Like my thoughts and ability to actually produce was in a completely different level than most of the other mornings. The phone is incredible, but it has a very sort of sharp another edge as well that we have to be able to be very intentional how to use it. And there's a lot more that could be said from that. But yeah, that's a fascinating discussion about the tech awareness for sure. What else? So let's open the book a little bit. So Mandemic, the 32 habits. There we go. There's a beautiful book. I love it. Hand size fits right into your palm nicely, beautifully. And you can basically, I think you mentioned that you can sort of read through in like a couple sittings. There's nice pictures. It's very easy, digestible. Look at that. Nice. Very digestible sort of format. I love it. And so you said there's 32 habits, and I think you just, like, each habit is just one word, and then you have a little bit of an explanation of it. So you could even, if you wanted to, I mean, I'm just, thinking about it, you could just take one page, one habit each day, digest it, and implement it straight away. What is your sort of idea of implementation for the book? Let's start from there.
Yeah, my hope is, because it's so basic, that a person it's a short story, and then they might dip into it. So they may take one habit and try that, or they may try a habit a day, or keep it somewhere they can pick it up and hold it. But what you were just saying about creative output, I've said quite a few times, I'm not sure if it wasn't full COVID and the lockdown here, I would have written a book. And I think that maybe happened to me. The pennies just dropped, because I was on my phone. I'd have calls back to back, talking about furlough. So I needed to put my phone down. So I had no palate to look at my phone, or so I would work during the day, phone would go off, and then I would have the evenings not even bother with my phone. And I think that creativity did push through me, because I enjoyed it immensely. It didn't feel hard work writing this. One of the habits, and which goes to, I think, probably what you just said about creativity, is gratitude. So we all know about gratitude. The way I position gratitude, so I define each habit. So gratitude, we've got thanks, grace, goodwill. And then what I have to say about gratitude is when we make a daily effort to focus on what we are grateful for, studies have shown that our positive feelings increase. It has been said that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. What can you give heartfelt thanks for today? Now, when I started discussion with gratitude with a few working on the self-care program, because it was a new thing, they would get stuck and say, well, I don't know where to start. And actually, I found physically writing down gratitude seemed to have a bigger impact. So if Joe Dispenza talks about rewiring the brain and how positive habits can change the brain patterns, then if one starts a day with one positive affirmation, one thing being grateful for, over the days and the weeks, this gains momentum. So I then did a gratitude journal. So the Mandemic gratitude journal is only one line. So I've made it really simple because I found that some of them on the self-care program, faced with a blank page, they couldn't do it. They couldn't even write one word. But today I'm grateful for to write one sentence, even if it's, or one word. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my pillow. I'm grateful I woke up. But the pattern then of filling in one line per day, and what I've urged people to do is to try and do it fairly soonish with pen and paper when you've woken up effectively or when you're having your first drink of the day. But that pattern, and I actually had somebody in the self-care program who would not write it down, had such resistance, high-flying executive, very fast life, very, sort of everything was quick, very, very, very successful, but resisted even writing down one thing of gratitude. So I'm still on a journey because each person I work with, I see different nuances really. But I think writing one thing you're grateful for every day, within a matter of weeks, a person is going to start feeling different. They're going to start the day feeling different.
Love it. And I love the realization that you had there, just to because the gratitude journal that you mentioned there gives you a little bit of a framework. Because I personally like to write on a blank, empty page. But a lot of the times there's like you staring at this white piece of paper that has nothing on it, and then you have to start creating. But what you just mentioned, it actually gives you a bit of a framework, gives you a bit of a head start if you don't know where to start from. So I've also published little like journaling prompts, like sort of ideas and insights that helps your brain to sort of kick off into a right gear and you start writing, because journaling is a beautiful and powerful habit for sure. Just really quickly, a quick shout out. If you guys are watching this on LinkedIn or either on Facebook or on YouTube, leave us a little comment. If you have any comments to Natasha about habits or anything that sparked your interest, your idea during the conversation, put it in the comments there and we can answer them either straight away or maybe towards the end of this discussion. We have about 10 to 15 minutes left here. So fantastic. So anything else about the book? Where can sort of people find it? What is the easiest way to get their hands on it? And let's go from there, and then we'll dive deeper into something else. So let's give us a little plug for the book right now.
So it's on Amazon. So probably anywhere else in the world except for French Polynesia, you're going to easily be able to get this posted to you. So it got international bestseller status in June, and in the US, they gave it #1 for happiness.
Wow.
And #1 for self-help read in less than 2 hours, which I was delighted with. I hadn't coined it as self-help. I think the quickest somebody said they've read it in 25 minutes. So it depends on a person how quickly. But Amazon, put in Mandemic, Natasha Jones, Amazon. Likewise on LinkedIn, there's a Mandemic page, and also under my personal page, there's links how to buy Mandemic. The gratitude journal, the Mandemic water bottle. But again, you'll be surprised that a water bottle is an obvious thing, but if you don't drink water, even the delay tactic of not going to buy a water bottle, I found some on the self-care program hadn't got around to buying the water bottle. So that's how I came to do water bottle, to say, right, here's your water bottle. Just got to fill it every morning. Because the resistance to start something new is huge with adults. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, find me on Instagram. It's at Mandemic Book. And yeah, Amazon, for ages, when you put in Mandemic, it said pandemic, but it now seems to recognize Mandemic. I'm delighted to say. So good on Amazon. You'll find me on there.
Nice one. And Richard was just saying that a great book. Looks like he's already written read it, so that's fantastic. Just quickly, it's interesting that what you mentioned there. Let's dive into that one. That somebody read it in 25 minutes. It's a quick read, yet the installation process or sort of implementing these habits is a lot of the times a very slow process. And that's just what you just mentioned there is like, people don't have time and it's a fast-paced life, yet there's sort of ingrained habits. They take quite a long time to really embody them, if you will. And you mentioned about your own meditation habit. You're in a day 700 plus and you still have that resistance. Now there's some other habits that might be a little bit faster to either implement and sort of start having as a daily practice without a lot of that resistance. So what's your thoughts on about that sort of installation process, and any tips or ideas? What would be the sort of easiest way to start with, especially when it comes to that resistance?
I think start with a habit. So nudges, what can prompt you? So if the water bottle, seeing the water bottle nudges you then to take the action effectively. If the book, because it's by your bedside or it's by the kettle or wherever you get up in the morning, you see it. So it nudges you then just to quickly do it. But I'm a big believer doing it at the same time every day. That seems to really help. So for me, I've developed a morning routine where I get up and do meditation. I do my gratitude, and then I get out for a walk. So I try and get at least 20 minutes in to get my endorphins up for 8 to 9 hours. Whilst my children on the school holidays, it was a bit trickier. Or put it this way, I made excuses and I broke the habit of my morning walks. So I'm delighted the children have gone back to school in the UK. I'm back to the nudges that there's a school bus to be had. I can go for my walk either before the school bus or afterwards. It's giving me a definitive time to do it. Yes, in the school holidays when I had, I suppose, less of a framework, I just didn't get around to doing it. And I was surprised how quickly, again, I broke a good habit. So you're not in the woods, I think, even if you've been doing it. It only takes a few days. It takes many days and weeks to build a good habit. But a few days of not doing it is you quite quickly regress. So it's, again, being aware and being kind to yourself. If you break a habit, it's easy to do. Just try and the next day get back to it as quick as you can, really.
Yeah, there's so much that could be said about that for sure. It's funny enough, I think it was yesterday, I just posted a little video actually on LinkedIn as well about how we have to about focus and distractions in a way. And when it comes to building habits, I think focus is one of our best allies in that sort of battle, if you will. And what I've always tried to do, and this is the quote unquote how to for me, and like we have to sort of increase the dissatisfaction towards those instant gratifications, if you will, and then decrease the resistance to these deeply focused related activities. And a lot of the times when we are talking, especially about healthy habits, when we are talking something that moves the needle for us, there's a resistance. Sometimes it's a small one, sometimes it's a larger resistance that we have to battle and we have to deal with. And it's so easy to go to these sort of quick hits, these sort of open social media, or go for some kind of sugary treat that gives you that little instant hit of pleasure and gratification. That's like, okay, maybe I can do that harder thing later, because there's that resistance. And these things that are easy to do and a lot of the times unhealthy, not just in sort of healthy, but also unhealthy for our business, unhealthy for our relationships, and obviously unhealthy for our actual health. they have this instantaneous hit of dopamine, instantaneous hit of gratification that sort of derails you, if you will. So we are up against a lot in a way, and and building these great, positive, healthy habits is definitely a way forward. Not necessarily the easiest way forward. So what you just mentioned there is like putting the bottle on the bedside table, maybe putting your walking shoes or running shoes next to the bed, and you're able to sort of that way decrease the resistance
Yeah.
to those better habits. That's definitely the way forward. And then the opposite is also true, that we have to sort of increase the, at least in my case, the dissatisfaction to those other habits, which is like what I'm feeling like if I open this social media right now when I'm not supposed to, I'm giving myself like a reversed sort of dissatisfaction, like I shouldn't really be doing it, and I'm trying to feel bad about it in a way, and that keeps me away from it. If you follow what I'm saying,
Yeah.
it's kind of this mental game that I'm playing with myself in a way. Right. What are the other, we talked about gratitude, we talked about water, walking, these very simple ideas. What are the sort of other, maybe you can pick up one or other two habits from the book that are some of the sort of your favorite ones, or what people can start with?
Okay, so half the habits are physical habits like walking, drinking water. Half of them are more mental habits. So my view is the mind and the body need to be aligned. You can't do one without the other. So unless you have the physical basis, you're not ready then to align the mind. Perception is one of my favorite, because when something doesn't happen how you wish it to, or when somebody does something you don't like, stopping, pausing and thinking, is there another way to perceive this? That, I think, has fundamentally changed me. So I think my personal reality in questioning my own perception, I think that has changed with, it's something I now always have in my contemplation, perception, and the other one is compassion. So whereas things would annoy me, they would maybe not make me angry, but I would feel my heart rate lift, and I would feel frustrated, and it would distract me. Then stopping and saying, either be compassionate because maybe that person's behaving in that way because something awful's happening to them. This is about them, not me. And do I perceive this as a personal affront? Do I perceive this as a criticism of me? Or can I perceive this in a different way? So I appreciate those are some quite deep, meaningful words at the end of this conversation. But for me, those as habits have, they've really changed me personally, I would say.
Love it. And I'm just again thinking out loud here. What you mentioned about compassion, it's almost like that perception, and also what we mentioned and what we talked about earlier about the awareness, about the self-awareness, almost like that sort of perception and awareness are precursors to compassion. It's very hard to be compassionate towards someone, or even towards yourself, without that perception and without that sort of self-awareness first. I'm always like, you need to have that first in order to then practice a bit of compassion. And once that perception or the awareness in a way comes to us as more of a habit, then that compassion starts to be like more on sort of automatic habit for us as well. So I always like to have these sort of triggers, and sort of thinking about like, what is a trigger that triggers the compassionate behavior.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times that is the perception, or that is the awareness, or what have you, or there's a pre-habit, like a tiny pre-habit, and then kicks the actual habit in gear. So I love it. It's been a fruitful discussion, Natasha. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Any other sort of final thoughts or final ideas about habits? And if somebody's really struggling right now with either implementing good ones or either breaking bad ones, what would be the easiest sort of point of entry, if you will, in your world?
I think beginning by being kind to yourself, being we've all done it. We all do it basically. Absolutely, sort of giving yourself a really hard time and being disappointed with yourself won't get you very far. But taking each day at a time and say, what can I do slightly different tomorrow that perhaps a little better than I did today, and taking it day by day, I think is the way forward. So if the comparison being, it came up several times this week, we have something in the UK called Weight Watchers, or where people try to lose weight, but they try to lose weight too quickly. And so then they don't have the reward because they haven't lost the weight quickly, and therefore they break the habit of looking about what they're eating. So habits are a long haul thing. They are small steps. They are tiny steps every single day. There is no quick fix, I don't think. And some days you'll do extremely well, and some days you won't do so well. And that's a personal journey. I'm on myself, basically. But sometimes being kind to yourself. And if you've broken your habit, instead of criticizing yourself and giving yourself a really hard time, say, well, tomorrow is a new day. I'll start tomorrow afresh. Anything you can do the night before, as you say, whether it's putting your walking shoes out, it's filling up your water bottle, preparing for the next day. Sometimes when I've had a day has not gone the way I want it to, then there's something I take some, I suppose, I take some help from just doing some small little actions just to try and set myself up the best way I can for the start of the next new day. But I mean, I frequently have muttered now, it will pass. No matter what's going on, it will eventually pass. It's like the rain. We'll have a massive rainstorm and eventually the sun will come out. It may take a while, but just knowing that it will pass and the sun will come out, I think is probably one of the things to hold at the forefront of your mind.
Love it. Love it. I'm just going to pull one comment out again here from Richard. He says, we need more compassion in business. Warm businesses will ultimately be more profitable than cold businesses. That's a great add-on right there. It goes hand in hand with what you just mentioned there, Natasha. Compassion, kindness, these sort of internal feelings are needed in a lot of times in the hard cold business world for sure. And that goes very, very far. So thank you so much for taking this time. I know it's been evening for you there in UK. I'm just starting my day here in South Pacific. So fruitful conversation, a lot of good insights, definitely. So thank you also for people watching us live. And if you're watching this on replay, please leave us some comments, leave some ideas or insights from the discussion. And we'll get into the comments later on for sure. So thank you so much, Natasha. I look forward to following these discussions. And do yourself a favor, pick up the book if you haven't done so. Mandemic Habits by the Chief Officer herself, Natasha Jones. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you more on LinkedIn, and hopefully we get to connect soon as this craziness is over. Maybe we get you here in Tahiti soon as well.
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, yeah, I will be out there as soon as I can.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much and have a beautiful evening.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.